Jaipur Literature Festival's Samvad tent. Welcome to the fifth and final day of the Jaipur Literature Festival. Our first session will be beginning very shortly. It is session number 149, The Joy of Yoga, with Ira Trivedi and Shazia Omar. Before we begin, I would just like to run through and thank all our sponsors who, without their generous support, we wouldn't be able to be here today and put this fantastic festival on. So, just like to thank our title sponsor, which is Z Entertainment, Cox and Kings, which are our venue partner over at our neighbour here, which is the Charbar venue. Free Charge, Rajasthan Tourism, Amity University, the British Council, CK Birla Hospital, Indigo, Airtel, and Coca-Cola. Also like to thank the Getty Foundation, BBC World Histories Magazine, our publishers Penguin, which is their 30th birthday this year, and HarperCollins, which is their 100th, and also the publishers Westland. Mahindra World City, Nestle, Dove, O Financiers, our media partners Red FM, and Rajasthan's very own Patrika Group and Bashkar Group. The Crest, Harvard University Press, Kashmir Loom, the Azad Foundation, Wesleyan University, MoMA, Literature Across Frontiers, the Jan Mikowski Foundation, the Aga Khan Foundation, Avid and Ambit, and Glenlivet and Kingfisher, who are sponsoring our beverages. And finally, the bookshop. If you haven't got a copy of any of the books for any of the fantastic authors you've seen throughout the festival, please make your way to the bookshop, which is, again, just outside the Charbar venue, and that is being managed by Full Circle this year. Okay, we're about to get underway with our first session of the day. As I just mentioned earlier, the first session is The Joy of Yoga. In a minute, I'll call to the stage our two authors and yoginis. We're very delighted to welcome to the stage Ira Trivedi. Ira is the best-selling author of 7 books, including the creator of the the Yoga Dog series, and she's founder of the not-for-profit Namami Yoga, which helps underprivileged children in India. She led the first International Day celebrations on the 21st of June 2015, where a world record was created for the largest yoga class held in the world. Ira's other books includes My Book of Yoga, and has a yoga show, Yogiara, on India Today, which is India's leading English news channel. She writes regularly for various publications in the US and abroad. She'll be joined on stage by Shazia Omar. Shazia is also an author, yogini and activist for the poor. She's written 3 books and 1 play, and writes the column in the Daily Star entitled Kundalini Rising. Her current book is Intentional Smile, A Guide to Positive Living. Without further ado, please welcome to the stage our 2 speakers for the next session, The Joy of Yoga, Ira Trivedi and Shazia Omar.
Sorry, okay, everyone can hear me now? Okay, fantastic. This is great because after sort of being mobbed at JLF for so many days, to have a peaceful conversation with a selective audience in a sort of quiet ambience is a real pleasure. In fact, it's good that there's few of us, so I hope that we can make it very interactive and you can ask whatever personal questions that you have. I'm really happy to welcome Shazia to India. In fact, when I was reading Shazia's bio, and I just met her for the first time this morning, I was like, wow, I think I found my Bangladeshi twin. You know, she went to Dartmouth, she then went to LSE, and she works in development. She has written not just books, but she does yoga and teaches a lot of yoga, which is a little similar to my journey as well, which is that I went to Wellesley, went to Columbia Business School, came back to India, decided, you know what, I'm going to write and do yoga, and and really focus on those two things.
And you're working with slums.
And I work with underprivileged children. Shazia works in poverty, so it's sort of like, my gosh, what's happening? This is this is my Bangladeshi twin. So I would love to hear a little bit more about Shazia's journey. We were actually leaving a lot of this for the stage. So we thought that we would let you know a little bit about our yoga journeys, and then we would discuss a couple of techniques, yoga techniques that everyone can do. And then we're going to open it up for Q&A. It's a small audience, so you guys can ask whatever you want to. Does that sound okay? We can sort of structure this panel as and how you guys want it, because we're a small number of people. So any questions that you have, even along the way, just please raise your hand, and we'll try to hop in, because I think that would be really doable.
Yeah, I like the idea. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So Shazia, tell us a little bit about how the yoga journey started. Have you been doing yoga since you were a kid? Shazia lives in Bangladesh. You're Muslim as well, so I would love to know about how doing yoga in a Muslim country, how that's influenced you, and if Bangladesh does have a lot of yoga. In India, I know, and I've led International Yoga Day. I work with the government on various yoga-related things. There's always sort of we're very, very careful about religion and yoga. So even today when Shazia said, should we start with 3 ohms? I said, listen, I don't know if JLF is the venue to do that. So I don't know we don't want to create any sort of controversy, especially on the yoga panel. So I would love to know about how you got started, when you started doing yoga, and how your path proceeded.
Thanks, Ira. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. And it was great meeting my twin in India. So I actually started doing yoga about 15 years ago. I was in college in the States, and I had gone through depression and a lot of body image issues. Probably same for you, but at Dartmouth, everyone was a perfectionist and everyone was anorexic. So when I got to Dartmouth, it was like, oh, there are these incredible ideals of being skinny, and that's all that's important. And I started kind of falling into this very American way of looking at the body that was new for me, but that very quickly became part of me, and it was very debilitating. And I started running in order to be skinny, and I started loving running. And I had been really unathletic my whole life. Like, ball sports didn't work for me. I would duck when the ball was coming towards me. So when I discovered running, it was very liberating and great. And then I moved to New York, and I was doing half marathons. And there's the 5 boroughs half marathons, and I had done 3 of the boroughs when I got hairline fractures on both my shins. And my doctor said, running is actually not very good for the body. And at the same time, I was working at Lehman Brothers as an investment banker. And so both my shins went out. And then I was in World Trade Center 1 when 9/11 happened, and I survived. But both the buildings went down. And so in a way, I felt like my own life and what was happening around me, everything was collapsing. Nothing made sense anymore. And it was like a big wake-up call. And so at that point, I resigned from Lehman Brothers and decided, you know what, I want to do something much more meaningful with my life. And I started traveling, and I visited various ashrams, and I learned yoga. And it's really the truth that transformed my life. It gave me an ability to relate to my body from inside rather than how it looked on the outside. I suddenly was gaining a lot of strength, which I had never really gained before. And I got a lot of confidence and empowerment and self-love, which was something throughout my teens I had struggled with. I lost my mom in college, and that was another big gap and void in me that yoga started to slowly fill. And then I moved to Bangladesh after my master's to work in development, and I started teaching yoga. So I've been teaching for 10, 11 years now. And as Ira said, it's a Muslim country. When I started teaching, no one had heard of yoga or was doing yoga in Bangladesh. But over the years, you'd be happy to know now there's 5 different studios. 5 of my students have become teachers, so there's a big uprising and interest in yoga. There is still a lot of questions around whether yoga is related to the Hindu religion or not. But what I try and share with my students is that yoga has been part of a Sufi lifestyle. It has its roots way before any religion. It's more about a way of preparing the body and the mind to meditate, to contemplate. It's an inner and outer connection, the mind, body, spirit. So these things all transcend religion, and it's about being happy with yourself and being healthy. And so I think it's slowly taking on. The Bangladeshi, culturally, we're not a very healthy people. We don't have very much knowledge of nutrition or body types like Ayurveda. A lot of the knowledge that I find in India so fascinating hasn't really become part of the culture in Bangladesh, but slowly people are becoming more aware of it. And I see the inclusiveness of yoga around the world is a beautiful thing that I hope, with the Modi government and things like that, that it doesn't try and create a more exclusive view to yoga. I think it should continue to embrace all people of all countries, and that's part of the beauty of it, because yoga is about union and oneness and community. So that's kind of my journey. But Ira, tell us a little bit about your journey to yoga.
When I listen to Shazia, I realize that my journey is not too different than what yours is. So again, I was actually very athletic when I was growing up, and in my family, we were always encouraged to play sports, and I really thank my parents for doing that, for encouraging us girls to really sort of play basketball. I used to play squash for India, and that's how I used to be. I went to the U.S. for college. I got a scholarship, and I went to the U.S. and what I realized there was all of these same issues about body image, about eating disorders. And coming from India, we actually have a far healthier culture. And in fact, I was in a beauty pageant. I was in the Miss India pageant, which my first book is about, many, many years ago. And even in that beauty pageant, I remember I was so shocked to see that these, girls who were in even the fashion industry that had very, very healthy eating habits. And it was juxtaposed to America, in which, every girl that I knew had some sort of eating disorder. And I actually see that now amongst young women more and more in India. And it's something which is very frightening, because the more and more you become body conscious, the more you start having self-doubt about how you look, because being beautiful has become so important in today's day and age. And while I understand that could be important, but to focus your entire energy on it, to someone like me, it didn't really make too much sense. And then
Is it all media driven, this body image issue?
Definitely in the United States, and now much more so in India, because we're all connected now through social media. So whatever is happening in the US, whatever is happening here, we're seeing so much of ourselves. Selfie culture. We're constantly looking at ourselves, which wasn't the case 10 years ago. How many photographs did we take 10 years ago? I remember for 10 years ago, I had like 5 photographs in 1 year, because it was expensive to take photographs to develop film. So when you're constantly looking at yourself, that really, really creates a lot of issues with body image. So like Shazia, what first led me to yoga was trying to lose weight, was trying to get my body in a particular way that I wanted. And in fact, I'll tell you, with yoga, I remember my father used to always tell me, he's like, tum jaake America mein yoga sikhao, wo yoga wahan pe bahut, it's like, becoming very popular, and you'll earn good pocket money. I was like, what's he talking about? Like teaching yoga? And I didn't know the why of yoga at that point at 18. And when I went to America, I remember, I went to one yoga class and it was $20. I was like, and I couldn't go, I couldn't afford it. So I said, I don't know what's going on. Then I actually came back to India and I started taking yoga classes. I was in Bhopal at that point in time. And I had this yoga teacher, who was very fat, okay? And secondly, when he was doing Shavasana, he would make us do Shavasana. It was my sister and I. Inevitably, he would fall asleep during Shavasana. And on top of that, he would start snoring during Shavasana, okay? And I was like, listen, this yoga is definitely not happening for me, okay? Like, this is not how I want to look. This is not the kind of yoga that I want to do. And so, so I said, forget this yoga business. I'm going to go like Shaz, I'm going to run. Like, this running is probably the correct technique for me. And even in school, I remember, like my first yoga memories were from school, which was like, everyone taking off their shoes, everyone's socks were smelling bad, you know, everyone was lying on the dusty floor, like everyone was trying to bunk yoga class constantly. It was the #1 class to bunk, always was yoga class because it was mandatory in school. And these were the memories of yoga that I had. And all of it changed when I went to the Shivananda ashram. It was an absolute leap of faith.
Where?
The Shivananda ashram is there's several of them. It's headquartered in Rishikesh. There's one in Kerala and Uttarkashi. So again, it was very much a leap of faith. And like most things in my life, it began with a book. I was in Delhi, and my second book, I think, or my first book had just come out, and my second book was coming out, and I just decided to become a full-time author. And so I had quite a lot of time on my hands. You know, I had quite a lot of time on my hands because I was now a full-time author. And I actually was at home and I saw on my bookshelf a book. It was a book called the Shivananda Yoga, and it was a really good quality book. It was like really glossy pictures, really nice pages. And I was like, wow, such a good quality book. This must be like a good place, or it's an interesting place at least. So it was really a sequence of events. I took a leap of faith. I was going to Kerala for a talk or something, and I decided to go to the ashram. And I went to the ashram and I spent 1 month there.
Wow.
And it was when I realized that when I learned yoga from a holistic perspective, and it wasn't just about doing asanas, it was about incorporating a yogic life. And at that point in time, I used to drink. I even used to smoke sometimes. I was never super unhealthy, but still, and now, you know, my life is absolutely transformed. Now I actually teach people how to, you know, do yoga to cure their hangovers, how to do yoga to quit smoking, how to do yoga to get over bad habits, and a lot of these techniques have been highly, highly effective over the years. So I think it's been, you know, for me, that's where it started, and then I continued going back to the ashram even now, I spend about 2 to 3 months there a year. At the Shivananda ashram, where I teach yoga, I learn yoga, I go back for my training every year. And it was really when I understood yoga from a 360-degree perspective, and that I realized what yoga is and how yoga should be taught. It's not about doing asanas, it's not about doing a physical exercise. It really does have transforming effects on our mind and body. And of course, it really is a spiritual journey of exploration. And my entryway into a spiritual life was through a physical yoga practice. And I realized that was important, especially for the kind of person that I used to be, who was a young woman who was very, very body conscious. And that's really what yoga, even Swami Vishnudevananda, whose teachings we follow, the Shivananda ashram, this is the sort of philosophy that he preached. Like, do yoga, and he emphasized on physical yoga because that's what's attractive. You know, that's what people want to do. They want to cure their problems. They want to look really good. But then once you do that, you form an entryway into a really a spiritual life and a spiritual journey. And my life is an example of that. So, and then of course, I teach our president. I've taught our prime minister. I led the International Yoga Day, which was 65,000 people, something we know is an honor and a privilege to do. I've written several books on yoga. I've created now characters. I have a foundation, so we teach underprivileged children yoga. I really started this, but look at the gift of yoga. You know, look at the kind of fruits that yoga gives to you. I started a small foundation saying I want to do something with yoga. I want to help other people. I don't have lots and lots of time to teach, but I do have some time. So how can I get children to do yoga? And so I said I want to change the image of yoga that we have. I don't want to have this Baba Ramdev. Baba Ramdev is great, you know, he's lovely, but I don't want yoga connected to religion. You know, I want people to see yoga as something cool, something sexy, something modern. I want young people today to do yoga, to know that it's as good as going to the gym. It's as good as
much
doing
better than going
much
to the
better,
gym.
And we'll explain to you how it's better than going to the gym and how it can. Today I don't do anything but 45 minutes of yoga, and I'm in the exact shape that I want to be. You know, I have very little body fat. I'm the same size today that I was when I was 15 years old. You know, because that's what yoga, and I just do about an hour of yoga every day, and that's it. So just to say that yoga just, you know, sort of creates such harmony in all of your internal systems. So anyways, we'll get further into the physical benefits of yoga. But
And also yoga is called chikitsa, right? It's a way of a therapy for every ailment possible.
absolutely, and which is the book that I'm releasing in June. It's called the 10-Minute Yoga Solution, in which I'm encouraging people to just do 10 minutes of yoga for their specific ailment, and yoga can cure it, and there's many, many studies showing that.
What are some of the ailments that you address?
So in my book, I talk about, I say first let's start with lifestyle. So let's talk about yoga for workaholics. So if you go to the office and you don't have time to do yoga, here are 5 things you can do in your office without taking off your shoes, without having a yoga mat. You can do them sitting on your chair. I have something called chair yoga, which you can do also sitting on a chair. There's beauty yoga for sort of getting glowing skin. You can get rid of pimples. You can get, hair yoga to sort of get your hair growing in the right way, right way that you want. Yoga for curing thyroid problems, for diabetes, even for things like hangovers, for things like for heartbreak. There's actually one for that. So if you're like really sort of a big problem of our age, because I write about it, I know that everyone has a broken heart. So that is something that I've actually addressed through yoga, through depression, anxiety, concentration, and focus. I've tried this out on kids and dramatically seen their results rise when they do just 10 minutes of focused concentration and these basic exercises every day for 5 minutes. Anti-aging yoga, so many, many different things. And yoga has a cure for all of them.
Actually, it's interesting that you talk about the discipline and the concentration, because since this session is called the joy of yoga, I was thinking of joy and happiness. And the Dalai Lama says that happiness is basically a trained attitude. It's about how you deal with stressors around you, how you take a breath and decide how you want to react when things happen around you. And I think what yoga does is it helps you develop that discipline in this really fast-paced life with so many, devices going on. We're sort of, as a culture, losing the ability to sit down and spend time with ourselves for an hour a day. And what yoga does is it brings you into that practice. And then I think that itself helps you address a lot of the issues around you and helps cultivate the kind of gratitude attitude that you need in order to be happy and healthy in life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Shazia's actually written a book about this. She's written a book about mindfulness and positive thinking, and she's combined yoga with a lot of meditation techniques in that book. So, I definitely agree with you in that way. So yoga has really changed my whole life. Just doing that practice. And that's why I propagate to all people, start with 10 minutes of yoga and see the kind of effects that this practice will have for you. It's really an elixir. And when you don't do that, then you're actually, you're shortchanging yourself, because we really are sitting on a beautiful repertoire of knowledge in this country, and if you're not using it, you really are shortchanging yourself. So I actually have a show on India Today called Yoga Ear, in which I do that, so you guys can check it on YouTube if you want to see specific videos on specific ailments. It's all online, which is what I do. There's a book coming out as well. So that's what I try to do with yoga. And again, my big intention is to get young people doing yoga now. I see so many young people say, we go to the gym. I'm now opening up yoga studios because I want to develop spaces for people to do yoga, because I realize we don't have spaces. So even if someone wants to do yoga, where do you go? Okay, you can go to a park, but in a park, it's not really the most comfortable environment to do yoga. There's noise, there's pollution, there's animals, it's not really the right place to do that. So I'm trying to develop, get people to do yoga, develop infrastructure to do yoga. I've created, so in my foundation, we created little animals. There's a dog called Om, there's a frog called Prana, and there's an elephant called Moksha. And Om, the yoga dog, teaches yoga. Moksha teaches meditation, and Prana teaches pranayam. And all of these 3 characters are actually, we use them to get little kids interested in yoga. And now there's in fact a whole series of books coming out, a picture book in which they all live in an ashram together. There's a guru, and yoga gives them magic powers. There's Karma the crow, there's Dharma the cow, there's Kama and Yama the kittens. So trying to bring in little philosophies of Sanskrit into picture books for children. So that's my intention. Now there's a cartoon series about this, which we're again trying to, cartoons today are so violent. There's so much violence in all these cartoons.
All
so
the
now
superheroes,
exactly.
all they're doing is killing.
It's all about killing people. In fact, television people have told me that, listen, unless there's a little bit of violence in shows for 3-year-olds, people, they're not going to get interested. And I said, oh my gosh, what kind of kids are we breeding, or what kind of kids are we raising
That's so true.
that they only want to see sort of people fighting in cartoons. And so we're trying to now
I have
develop.
a 6-year-old son, and when he's playing, he'll take a gun. He doesn't have any toys that are guns, so he'll make them out of paper. And I'll be like, what are they doing? Are they shooting? And he'll be like, oh, they're shooting love, Mama, don't worry. Because I'm like, no, it's about love.
Yeah, so absolutely. It really is, so that's what I'm trying to develop through these characters. And it's been very useful. I've seen the effect, and I've seen how kids have become interested in all of these little characters, and just seeing yoga through a new way. So I told you about my experience with the first yoga teacher who used to fall asleep, and about my experience with, always bunking yoga class. Like, I was the #1 bunker of that class always. And I'd love to find that teacher and just sort of
wake him up.
Yeah, and so it's that's how my yoga journey has transformed, and all of it has. I've just done that because I want people to do yoga. It's given so much to me. I'd love to be able to
Absolutely.
Love to be able to give
Share
back.
it. One of my classes is with a group of 20 girls who are all software engineers from very humble backgrounds. So they've really gone really far out of their settings to get themselves educated, and now they're working at a mobile phone company where I teach. And many of them have hijabs, but they come, at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they've started learning yoga. And I think Iyengar said this beautiful thing, that if you don't have body awareness and you haven't done yoga or dance or martial arts or another form of energy related, then it's like you're living your life in your body, which is a straitjacket. And when I see some of these girls, and they're young, they're in their early 20s, I really feel like, oh my God, they're in straitjackets. They're so stiff. And I feel like so many people live their lives without ever being able to really embody their body. And if you think about it, this is your one vehicle with which to experience your entire life. And we put so little effort into taking care of it. We put much more effort into keeping our room clean rather than our bodies. And when they say health is wealth, it's so true. When you've got a tiny tummy ache, everything else is sort of overshadowed. So I think it's really important to take the time to understand your body and understand which way to stretch when you've got an ache here, and how to sort of invigorate yourself. And one of the things that I find I'm more and more drawn to, I don't know as much about as yet, is pranayama, which is the breathing aspect of yoga. And basically the idea behind it is that all the energy we take in energy through the food we eat. So we should be very conscious of what we're eating, because 2 seconds on the lips and 10 years on the hips. So you really have to think about what you're eating. Don't eat just for taste, eat for what it's going to do to your body. And then sun is another form of energy we take in, and oxygen is another form. And oxygen, we need it for everything. If you don't have oxygen in your blood, you can suffer a stroke. If you don't have oxygen in your muscles, you cramp up. If you don't have oxygen going to your heart, that leads to heart attacks. But most of us are using only less than 60% of our lung capacity. And that's because we're breathing, and it's funny, if you look at a child, they're all breathing into their bellies. But somehow we learn to do the wrong thing, and we start breathing only into our chest, and that's called shallow breathing. And when you're breathing in your chest, it means you're stuck in your head, and you're worried, and you're thinking about the past and the future, and you've got shallow breathing going on, so the amount of energy you're getting is very little. Whereas if you do maybe 10, 15 minutes of breathing exercises to help expand your lung capacity, what I've found is the weeks that I do 10, 15 minutes of pranayama, I can stay up much longer, I can eat less and still have energy, and I'm much more active throughout the day, because oxygen is actually the form of energy that I'm taking in. And they say that our number of breaths is limited. So say you're limited to 20 more breaths in your life, and you can't change that because that's destiny. but the length of each breath can be changed. So instead of taking 20 breaths in 20 seconds, you could take your 20 breaths in 20 minutes and change the quality of your life. So creatures like tortoises that live for 100 years, they have very long, deep, slow breaths, and that's what we need to all aspire to. So I'm gonna give you a little bit of an exercise. Everyone put your hand on your belly, and I want you to breathe into your belly, expanding it like a big balloon. So your fingers spread apart, and then exhale. And now breathe in again. And if your fingers aren't spreading apart, that means you're probably not breathing deep into your belly. And every time I do this with my class, I'll find that actually nobody's breathing into their belly. It takes a few sessions of practice to learn to be filling our bellies with air. Otherwise, we're just coming up into our breath. And so I think pranayama is a really important thing for everybody to learn. And I think kids are already automatically doing it. But if you get them aware of it, they maybe won't lose that faculty and have to relearn it again later on when they're older.
Absolutely, and that's why we have Prana the frog teaching pranayam in the book. It's because frogs breathe not just only through the lungs but also through their skin.
Oh.
So that's why, because they have so much
that.
oxygenation, I said, listen, we have to have a frog teaching pranayam. Okay, so now
what does the frog do to show kids how to do pranayama?
Oh, he does various exercises like the belly breath,
Okay.
like Kapalbhati and Anulom Vilom. So just very, very simple things for children to learn. When they're simple. So it begins with very, very basic things like the belly breathing,
Right.
and moving out to slightly more advanced exercises.
Awesome.
Okay, so what can I teach all of you? I want you to take away something from this session, something that, excuse me, yes, tell me. Yes.
How do you incorporate the Patanjali sutras into your lessons? And if so, the interpretation, what do you depend on?
So I'll tell you, when I teach, even with us, when we did our training, we learned Patanjali sutras at a much more advanced state when we were ready for them. They're quite esoteric. Each one, it's so short. There's only some, it's a page. All Patanjali sutras, you can write all of them in about 2 pages. And so each one has so much depth that I don't teach those to my students because they're just very advanced, techniques. And what I'm trying to do is first to get people to teach the basics, and then we build up on it. And when you're ready, then you learn that. Because if you start teaching Patanjali sutras to very basic beginners, then they're going to get bored and they'll run away. They say, what is all this hocus pocus? We don't want to learn this. But when the students are ready for it, then that's the time that it's, one can begin to introduce them. So even at the ashram, which is the right environment to also intake this kind of knowledge, it's only when when I did my acharya training is when we really, then we spent 6-7 hours a day going over each sutra so that, we know it and understand it quite well. So, and
Yeah,
what
I think
don't
you're right.
quite,
There's the right stage for
exactly.
things.
So what I don't like, and what makes it even for me, because I went through this myself, when I was a beginner yoga student, none of it made sense to me, and I would see Patanjali sutras and I would run away. Saying, what is all this? Like, I don't understand any of it. So I think the thing of yoga is you begin slowly and slowly, and it's such a long and beautiful journey, but you have to learn the right thing at the right state. I can't teach a very, very beginner student a very advanced asana because it'll hurt them. So what I try to do is I teach people what their bodies, what their minds, what their experience can take them, and then we move along the journey. So now what can I give all of you? Yes.
I once went for a yoga classes, and I don't know what asana they taught. I had a backache for around a year. It was so terrible, and I just attended for 4 days, and I stopped going after that. It was, one thing. And secondly, can you teach something for allergic cough like asthma and all, like bronchial asthma for lungs, so that because there are so many problems for which allopathy has no solution.
Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate 2 things for you. Maybe Kapalbhati, and maybe you can demonstrate some Anulom Vilom. Yeah?
Or the other way.
Sure, yeah, I'm happy to do that. So So she can demonstrate some Kapal Bhati, I'll do some Anulom Vilom. And let me give you a few very basic things that everyone should do every day. I'll give you maybe 3 to 4 things that you can take away and incorporate into your daily lifestyle. So even if you've never done any yoga before, these are very, very safe to do. In fact, I wore yoga pants to this session so that I could, get on wherever and do something to show all of you, whatever works. So let's address all of these things. We have about
15 minutes?
About 20 minutes actually.
Okay.
So I think we have enough time. So let's take a couple of questions so I understand what people want to know, and then at the end we'll do a full demonstration of a whole bunch of things. Yeah.
Hi, I'm a yoga teacher as well, and I'm working on a project in the slums of Gujarat.
Where is the speaker? Okay.
Hi. And the community that I'm working with is also half Hindu, half Muslim.
Oh. And where is this yoga community?
In Gujarat, in Ahmedabad.
Okay.
And I teach from a tantric lineage, so I don't teach in a religious way, but obviously the mantras are more connected to the Hindu religion. And I wondered if you had any advice of how you manage the cultural sensitivity so that it doesn't feel like it's kind of, Hindu missionary kind of work.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So again, what I do is I always try to incorporate Om, at least Om, because Om is really a Bij mantra. It's a very powerful mantra, and I don't associate ever with religion. So I'll say that Om is a sound. It's a celestial sound, and I don't even say it's a mantra. I'll say it's a celestial sound. It has energy, and you're teaching children. You said, right? It's all ages. So I'll say it's a sound. It's a Sanskrit sound. It has nothing to do with Hinduism or religion. And I'll say that we have variations of the sound in all different religions. So I try to stick to basic mantras like Om. I don't go into anything too complicated. I have a television show as well, so that goes out to millions of people. And even in that, you have to be a little careful. So even, for example, here at the session, I said, should we start with an Om? I was a little bit wary. So you do have to sort of, I tend to do that. So an Om I'll always try to incorporate because it also gets people into the class. When you hear those vibrations and you're about to do a physical practice, it does help people focus and concentrate and create that sound energy. So I've always told people that mantras or sounds, it's about sound energy, just like there's any sort of energy. And that's how I'll teach. And I too have students from all different religions. And then the students who want to know more, they will generally come to you. They will generally come to you and ask more, and then you can dispense to them whatever you know and you'd like to tell them. So that's how I deal with religion in my classes.
And I think also you're probably aware that the tantric lineage, like Kundalini, for example, came very much from areas like Kashmir where there was a Sufi and a Hindu influence converging. And so a lot of the Sufi breathing is very similar to the ones you're probably doing. So I have had times when I've told people that you don't have to say Om, you can make any other word and it would still be suitable. I think there's somebody here who's been raising her hand
afterwards, yeah? Thank you.
Ma'am, being a writer, you are a yoga specialist also. How you club both the professions at the same moment, as it's very difficult.
Right. I've written 2 books. Intentional Smile is a book about how to be positive, and it has techniques like yoga, pranayam, meditation, gratitude journal, anchoring. But my other 2 books, Dark Diamond is a historical fiction, and Like a Diamond in the Sky is about a heroin junkie who's sort of trying to find a connection with the spiritual set in a very grimy, gritty Dhaka city. And Ira has also written several books, which I'd love to hear about. But I think what yoga does is 2 things, 1 or 3 maybe, or many, but 3 of the things it does is, 1 is that discipline that I was talking about. And I think what separates a writer from a wannabe writer is really discipline, because writing is just about the slog of every day getting onto your computer until you finish. And it also helps channel your energy. And I think for me, it's definitely been really empowering. Once I'm on the mat and I've learned to suddenly do a new move, I feel like I can do anything now. And confidence and empowerment is, I think, helps me achieve whatever my dreams are and manifest the kind of reality that I'm looking for. What do you think? Ira, tell us a little bit about your books.
I think right now let's take a couple more questions on yoga specific actually, so that we can address, because I want to take 10 minutes at the end to then give you specific techniques that you can take back with you when you leave this session. So let's hear a couple of things that you want to hear so that we can then get into specific techniques. Yeah.
I would like to know about yoga for depression and anxiety in youngsters.
Okay, fantastic.
Perfect. When we talk about depression, I'd also like to give you a technique called anchoring, which has really helped me, and that's something that I talk a lot about in Intentional Smile, because depression in Bangladesh, maybe also in India, is such a taboo topic that people don't really learn what are the techniques to cope with it, because nobody even is allowed to talk about it.
Yes. Yes.
Could you just speak a little bit about to what extent you think there's a tension between yoga as a spiritual practice and yoga as a business? I've got several friends in the UK who became yoga teachers, and it seems like quite a hard market. There's a lot of stress to promote yourself, to hype yoga, and you often don't work for not very much money. So is there a tension you've seen there?
That's interesting.
There is a tension, but it should never become a tension, you know? And as a yoga teacher, I think they should realize this, that you shouldn't, that, you know, even if there's it shouldn't become a tension in your life. And even though it is difficult, like any other thing, to build a yoga business, to build a yoga practice, I've been lucky in that, which has happened quite organically. But again, for me, it's a big question mark, as in how much of my time, there's a question earlier, because I do have a full writing career, but I also have a full yoga career. So it's often a little bit difficult to bring them together. But now, with Om the Yoga Dog, I'm able to write about yoga. So for me, this is a perfect balance. But often it is a delicate balance. But if yoga can't teach you about balance, then what can? You know, what can? So.
And I think also, not just yoga, even writing, a lot of writers are quite introverted people, and they spend a lot of time sort of solitary in contemplation. Yeah. And then you've got a book out, and there's so much promotion necessary if anyone's going to read it. That you unfortunately, with the capitalist economy world that we live in right now, marketing and promotion is so much a part of being successful in anything.
In a headstand or in a...
In a headstand.
I was like...
Headstand.
Yes. Yes. I will, yes.
I think you should do it in a headstand.
Okay, maybe I will. You can see it maybe more clearly there, yes.
Ma'am, we were, all the 5 of us here, we go to an international boarding school where we do yoga and meditation every day.
All right.
And we come from a more, like, we learn Sikhism from that religion. And you learned it from a Hinduism background, right? So
I have learned it from, while our teachers were Hindu, I would say that the teachings are not religion specific. They're sort of applicable, and we try to incorporate many teachings of many religions into a spiritual teaching. So I would say my attitude is far more spiritual than religion. But we do take on, you know, we do look at Hindu scriptures.
I was also wondering, at what age did you learn about like the yogic lifestyle, and how did you get inspired to become a teacher and start teaching yoga?
So that's a very good question. So it was, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, that it was about, I would say it was about when I was 22, 23, that I first actually began yoga in a very serious way. Yeah, in a very serious way. I did my first teacher's training when I was about 23 as well, and since then I've done several years of teaching. As I said, I spent about between 1 and 3 months every year at the ashram, in which I do further teachings and teach and learn. So it's a constant practice that I do. Yes.
Madam, this is to Ira and Omar too. Madam, I am Motilal Verma. I am also a natural healer.
Oh.
I am also with the government. I am practicing meditation for more than 15 years. And I was with 9 complications and on 13 pills. I have come out all the complications, and after practicing deep meditation, I come to this level. I have handled 70 different type of complications, including cancers and tumors.
Fantastic.
So you have
Wow,
described,
well done.
as this gentleman described, his asthmatic, and the asthma didn't enter, though some pollutants enter into our body through chemicals and pesticides and the polluted air and polluted
Sorry,
food.
do you have a question by any chance? Because we're really running short of time, as many people.
My question is, you have described several techniques of yoga and asanas. Can they be only helpful? And to what an extent the food is helpful? Because the rishis and munis have said the meditation or yoga or asanas are equally important as which is the food we take.
So, of course, food is very important, and we all know that, and Shazia definitely talked about it when she was talking about prana and pranic energy. But just one thing here, as I started doing more and more yoga, and it was a very natural progression. I automatically did not want to consume alcohol. I automatically did not want to be in environments that were unhealthy, like where people were smoking.
Or toxic and
toxic
negative
environments.
energy.
I automatically did not want to eat food that did not suit my body, and I automatically started, my body, as it became more and more balanced, my eating became more and more balanced. And I looked for foods that were good for me. So it was a very natural progression. That's the beauty of yoga. That's the beauty of yoga over running, over going to the gym, over doing all that, because not only is it good for your physical body, but it's beautiful for your inner body as well, and it creates a harmony between your nervous system, your hormonal systems, and all of that.
Ira's really right. One of the things Patabi Joy says is practice, 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 and all is coming. It's really that you just get on your mat every day, and after years of practice, you start having all sorts of other knowledge, like she said, about what's good for you and what's not good for you, that have nothing to do with your physical practice, but they all sort of just start, you tap into your body's intuition in a way that we've forgotten how to do in today's modern life.
So let's take one more question, then we'll get on to doing a few demonstrations so you guys can take some things back. Yes?
What about Ashtang Yoga and Ahar and Nidra? Sleep, food and sleep. What about Ashtang Yoga?
I'm trained in Ashtanga. I love it. Basically, a little bit about it is Ashtanga means the 8 limbs. And if you look at the 8 limbs of yoga, I think it's basically the 8 things you need to live a healthy lifestyle, of which only one is the physical asana practice. And the others include your conduct with yourself and your conduct with others, pranayama, meditation, pratyahara, drawing away from the senses and contemplating introspection. So I think it has a lot to teach, and it's a great foundation for yogis.
Okay, so now let's get to a quick demonstration. I want to, before we go, I want everyone to have a few takeaways from this session. So it's not as if you guys, Siki, we came and we learned nothing and we went. So that should not be the complaint from this session at all. So why don't you do a quick demonstration of Kapalbhati, and maybe as you do it, I'll just tell you a couple of things to keep in mind, because you can't talk and do it at the same time.
Sure.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Great.
Kapalbhati basically is the light in your forehead. So the reason I like to talk about it is because it's about awakening your intuition, and it acts like kind of like a shot of coffee or espresso. And the other interesting thing is, like, it gives you energy when you need energy. The other interesting thing is that our breath and our emotions are linked. So a lot of times when you're sad, you sort of sigh and slow, deep breathing. Or when you're angry, you're like, I'm gonna get him, or something like that, right? And we can't always control our emotions, but we can control our breath. So when you find that your emotions are running away with you and you can't control it, the best thing you can do is start to control your breath, and that will then change your emotions, because the two are linked. So Kapalbhati is a great tool in your toolkit to work on your emotions. If you're angry at your work, all of a sudden there's a meeting not going well, you can always go to the bathroom, do a couple of minutes of Kapalbhati, and then you're in a whole new frame of mind to deal with your challenge.
And also addressing your question on allergies, what
And
this
asthma.
does is that it's very, it really pumps out all the stale air in your lungs. You know, so it's a cleansing exercise and rejuvenating. No, you should keep it, I mean, I would suggest you do it first thing in the morning. So always keep a gap between, I would say 2 to 3 hours. It depends how heavy your meal is. So if you've had something small, you can still do about an hour afterwards. But it's also how intense you can, you know, you can do it with a little bit less intensity if you feel like you have a full stomach. So I tell people that rather than not doing it at all, do it a little bit and less intensely than just skipping it altogether. Because if you start skipping it, then, you know, you lose the discipline. So why don't you...
And Kapalbhati also is a metabolism booster because it's bringing energy to your gut. So if you do it before your meal, if you do it before your meals for 20 days in a row, you can completely change your metabolism level, which means you can eat more and burn it without having to do more to burn it. So one basic way, so what I'll do is just do, basically it's a quick exhale from your tummy with the sound. And there's no conscious inhale that just happens while you're doing your exhale, so it's kind of like this. And your tummy goes in as you exhale.
Yes.
How about everybody try a round of Kapalbhati?
As long as you've not eaten very recently, so just to try to keep your...
I have.
Try to keep your feet flat on the floor, both of them, and with your back straight, because that's very important. The straighter your spine, feet flat on the floor, try to, you know, and chin up, so your chin should be in level. And now inhale, and the exhalation, remember, is sort of a pump. And the inhalation, you're not inhaling. It's automatic inhalation. So it's I'm not breathing in very loudly. So that's the mistake that people make in Kapalbhati. They start inhaling, but the pumping should have an automatic inhalation. So now let's try it. I'll give you the counting, and you guys do it. So inhale and exhale normally. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, and now we begin. So inhale, pump, automatic, pump, automatic breath, pump, automatic breath, pump, automatic breath, pump, breath, pump, breath, pump. And so that's how it's done. I was giving very slow instructions, so you can begin doing it slowly and then increase the pace as you go up. And what Shazia was demonstrating is sort of, you know, when you get very comfortable with the posture, you begin doing that.
Right. Actually, Ira made a good point. Most important is that your tummy goes in on the exhale. So you do want to start slowly just to make sure you're going the right direction.
Great. Now, a couple of other things which I just want to leave you with. So what I tell most people to do, just do a few basic yogasans every day. So one of them is, you know, for example, try to sit every day in Vajrasana. You know, Vajrasana is a fantastic posture for digestion. So this is as simple as this. So after you finish dinner, after you do a meal, just try to sit in Vajrasana like this. And some people have knee problems, so they can't sit like this. Try to keep a cushion underneath. This is so good for your digestion. Especially in India, you know, we have very late dinners. We're having dinner at 9 o'clock, sleeping at 10:30. So you do need to digest your food. So this is a very, very good asana for doing that. The other one which I suggest that everyone should do is Pavan Muktasana. Again, very good for gas, for bloating, for your stomach. So that's, again, very simple. Just lie down on your back and grab your knees and hug them. It's a very good relaxation posture. It's
Babe,
really
turn
good for your...
and do it.
Oh, can you guys see it? No? A little bit? Okay. I think they got it. So these are two sort of very, very basic postures which everyone can include for their stomach. Is you know, digestion, is Vajrasana, Pavan Muktasana. Also very good relaxation for the back and the spine. Now one more I'm going to do, I'm going to give a very simple technique for hair growth. So because you know, people often say that, you know, we use a lot of hair oil.
Is this for men and women?
It's for men and women both. It's called Prasanna Mudra. So what we're doing here, it's Bal Vyayam or Prasan Mudra. So what we're doing here, it's very simple. We're just rubbing the tips of our fingers together so that the nails are rubbing against each other. And that's it. It's as simple as that, you know. And make sure these two are not rubbing because these 2 points stimulate beard and facial hair growth. So unless you want a beard, then you guys can do this. Otherwise, I think it's in fashion now, right, for men. So for you guys can do this. Otherwise, I suggest that you just do this. And if you can do this for 5 minutes a day, 3 times a day, you'll be surprised what this can do.
We want to hear back from you.
Any time of the day. And so, you know, I tell people when you're sitting in the car, when you're sitting on the metro, you're sitting on the bus, just do this, Bal Vyayam. It's called Bal Vyayam. And I'm not making this stuff up. This is, you know, in the Hatha Yoga Pratipaka. So this stuff is, you know, is very, very effective. So just go like this. If you guys want a beard, then I guess that's the thing. Girls, ladies, don't do it. That's one thing. And now, one more thing is for skin. You know, for skin, a lot of people often say that I have acne because there's so many pollutants, toxins in the environment. So 2 very simple techniques for skin. So the first one is as simple as this, Chin Mudra. Chin Mudra is so simple. You know, these are pressure points in our body. And what they actually do is so when we get acne, it's usually because there's too much pitta in our body. Our body has 3 doshas, vata, pitta, kapha. And we have too much heat in our body, which is often why we'll get pimples and bad skin. So this Chin Mudra actually helps reduce the pitta in our body. So, you know, even if you're sitting around, I would just say, like, try to keep your fingers in Chin Mudra as much as possible. And you'd be shocked and surprised what little simple things like this, including them in your life, you know, how this is a way to begin yoga. So when people say, how do we start yoga? We don't know how to start. There's no classes, no nothing. I'll say just do these 3-4 basic things every day, and you yourself will then move towards on a path which brings you closer to yoga. And now last one is for the face and for wrinkles, for, you know, sort of tightening of the skin, which people, again, very, very concerned about. Under eye bags. So, you know, often we have dark circles and sagging under eye bags. This is called Kapal Randha Dhoti. Again, a sort of, you know, a very old technique. So what we're doing here, again, feet flat on the ground, spine as straight as possible always. Thumbs on your temples. Take 2 fingers or 3 fingers, whichever you're comfortable. Close your eyes and start creating circles. So from your eyebrows to your temples and underneath your eyes. So try now creating these circles. Just so it's kind of like giving a facial massage while hitting all the points. And the other one that you can do is then you start using your fingers and moving them across your forehead. So even if when you start going, so you keep your hands here on the temples, you don't move them, and you start going like this. So you can do the Kapal Randha Dhoti, so it's circles, and then swipes on the forehead. This is also quite a calming exercise. You can already probably feel, so those of you who are doing it, you can already feel how that area just feels more relaxed and feels more calm, and just it's very good for getting rid of wrinkles and keeping your facial skin aglow. So he's saying, how quickly will the benefits affect you? That, yes. So you know, yoga is not a quick fix. You know, maybe a cream is, but you'll spend 5,000 rupees on that cream or something crazy, and within 3 months you'll see that it's actually created more damage than good. For the first 2 months you may have glowing skin, and after 2 months you see that, you know, your skin's become very sensitive to the sun and you have sun damage now on your skin. So yoga is a long-term solution. So, you know, you start doing these things slowly and steadily, but I guarantee you, you know, you can hold me to it, you will see the benefits of yoga. It takes time because it's a very it's an internal and an aggressive cure. But I'm just thinking about whether we have any more time to do anything. I was going to demonstrate my favorite asana, the Shishasana, which is actually the best asana is a headstand, but I think we don't have time, huh?
No time, all right.
Yes, excuse me? Would you want me to do it? Should I try? Do we have time? Okay, so one thing I just want to tell everyone that, you know, A Shishasana. Okay, first of all, I know he had a back pain, so I don't, don't try it just like that. Okay, again, I've had years of practice, so I can do it. But the headstand is the king of all asanas. It has so many benefits in many, many ways, and everyone can do it. I have seen students who are 150 to 200 kgs get up on their head. So it's a lot of it is about self-confidence. A lot of it is sort of getting over that fear of doing a headstand, and it's actually a particular technique to do it. So, and maybe we can the back arch question may be addressed here, as I'm upside down and not on my head. So we can try doing it right now. Except I'm just trying to get this mic. So, yeah.
So she's measuring out this space from elbow to elbow and then cupping her hands together, crown of the head on the floor in that cupped space, walking towards her wrists and kicking up into a comfortable balance. And voila! And this is, it's an inversion, so all the blood is flowing to her face. So this has anti-aging properties, brings blood to your brain. Beautiful! We can't hear you. All right. Okay, thank you, everybody. We hope you have fun. We'll be at the book signing.